Welcome to the Building Sheriffs. This is just a quick disclaimer, everybody. The podcast you're about to listen to has good audio from Chris and not such great audio from me. However, we think it's good content and I just apologise in advance. I hope you continue to listen. Hello and welcome to the Building Sheriffs. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whichever way up or down you are, wherever you are in the world, hello. My name is Paul Piccioni, otherwise known as Pooch, and with me is Chris E.W. Jowett. Today we are going to be talking about builders, labourers. If you think that sounds boring, people out there, please don't go out. Please don't go anywhere. It will be very enlightening indeed. But first, let's say hello to my old mate, my old building buddy, Chris E.W. Jowett. How are you, Chris?
I'm fine, old sport. I've just reminded myself that you started off as my labourer.
I know. I know. We'll get to that in a second. That was what we decided to write some notes today, and that was the first thing that I put down.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So what have you been up to today?
I've been doing... well, first of all, I've been preparing to do some EPCs tomorrow because I've actually got a day's work.
Wow.
So I should go out tomorrow and do 4.
Nice.
And yeah, it's not... When I said it's a day's work, what I meant was it's just a day...
Day working.
Driving around the Dales in my car and strolling around people's houses with a clipboard. The word work doesn't enter into it. And it's very well paid, so I'm looking forward to that.
The good thing is it'll buy you a good few pints of Older Beastly, won't it?
It will indeed, mate. Yes, it will indeed.
Do you want to hear about my day, as you never ask?
I never ask questions of anyone. It might even, I don't know who's, anyway, somebody, could have been you, okay? It wasn't this wife, one of my other ones. His wife had just given birth. All right,
yeah.
So that gives scope to, there must be 30 blokes, we both.
Sure.
And I spoke to him, and I organised when he was going out for a drink for wetting the baby's head, and then I put the phone down. And I don't know which wife it was. She said, well, it's Friday.
Yeah.
She said, what about the baby? I said, I didn't ask.
Yeah.
So I didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl or anything. No.
She would have wanted to know.
I don't ask questions, Pooch. It's potentially a failing of mine on occasion.
Well, your wife would have wanted to know the sex, the name, and the duration of the labour. They're the 3 big ones. So anyone out there, you probably won't know that until you have kids, just as you do not know until you have kids that when your friend has a child, if you already have children, you know you buy a little present for the baby. But when you don't have children, you don't know this. So your friend has a child and you go, oh, what was it? Blah, blah, blah. But all the other friends with children are bringing little trousers from Next, aren't they?
I do believe that is the case, yes. I've never been to Next, so of course... what do I know? I don't do presents. But if there's a present to be bought, guess who buys it, Pooch?
Yes, exactly. Well, talking of presents, I had to go to Kingston today. My iPhone was running really slowly, and Apple have got this battery thing now. There's a problem with the batteries, so they replaced it for 25 quid. I picked Scarlett up, my daughter, from college, and when we were in Kingston, I had to wait 45 minutes. So I wandered around and I saw this jacket that I thought, oh, that looks good. It was in the sale. So I went back, met Scarlett, bearing in mind I didn't have a phone. So I had to say to her, I'll meet you at the Apple store at 3 p.m. So went to the Apple store, met her, got the phone, and then I said, look, I just want to show you the jacket. Because even at 17, she knows more about fashion than I will ever know in my entire life. So I tried this jacket on, and she didn't like the first one, but she really liked the second one. I said, well, that's good. It's been reduced from 84 quid to 40 quid, over a 40 quid saving. So I bought it. As I walked up to the car, I suddenly realised, parking ticket, 40 quid's worth. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh 40 quid away in one fell swoop.
No, Pooch, get 2 things with a parking ticket. Pay it immediately, because if you leave it on the mantelpiece, you'll hate it more and more every time you look at it. And don't pay it yourself. Get Jo to pay it out of her account. Because I hate getting parked.
2 things on that, Chris. Firstly, yes, I will pay it immediately because I left one go once and it went up to 600 quid, which I didn't like paying. Me all over.
God almighty.
Secondly, I will not ask Jo to pay for it, and I wanted to address this on the podcast because, as Norman, our listener, now knows, our viewer, we now have another viewer, my wife. Jo likes the podcast. Now, I realised that when I tell this story, which I wanted to tell you because I thought it was quite funny that I saved 40 quid and then got a parking ticket, at some point in the future, I don't want to tell Jo because she'll have a go at me, but at some point in the future, she will hear this podcast and she'll say, oh, you got a 40 quid parking ticket, blah, blah, blah. So Jo, I challenge you, when you are listening to this podcast, when you hear this bit, and Chris will chip in a second, never ever to say anything about it and just let me off this one, please. Because I never say anything when you get a parking ticket or crash the car. What do you think, Chris?
A wife who's able to hold her tongue, I'm afraid they're mutually exclusive phrases, mate.
I lay down the challenge again. Jo, please, but as long as you can. And Norman, we will keep you updated and I will let you guys know that it's now, what are we now, Chris? Early January the 15th, 16th. And we will let you know if Jo breaks that silence or if she agrees with it. Now, if she doesn't say anything for 6 months on our wedding, which is June the 16th, I will give her £100 in cash.
On your wedding anniversary?
Oh, well, I'll buy her a present, but it just so happens
that £100 in cash.
Yeah, the dates coincide. Or I tell you what, Chris, let's go steak meal guaranteed.
So what will happen, Pooch, is on your wedding anniversary, you'll give her £100 and she'll give you a bollocking for getting a parking ticket.
That's about the way it will go. Talking of bollockings, I think that the most bollockings you ever give out when you're in the building trade is to your useless bloody labourer. Welcome back to the building, Sheriff, and I can see by the look on Chris's face he's got a story immediately.
Well, I was going to tell you one about a lad I had who was a complete and utter drongo, but while we were just talking then about wives and bollockings, I'll come in with one of the funniest stories. I shouldn't really come in with this. You should lead up to the funniest story. But I'll come in with one of the funniest stories I've got regarding this fantastic bloke, a pal of mine, who was my labourer. You can't really call him a labourer. He was a mate who worked with me, who we lovingly all call the F. That's F for Fred.
Oh, the F.
On this occasion, yes. You know the F? Now, the F was a black and white man who had strict rules and would not digress from them at all. And one day we were in the pub on Friday, because we always went to the pub on Friday. His wife knew exactly where he'd be, and she sent one of the kids in to get the money as usual out of his pocket before the bugger spent the whole damn lot on a Friday night. And he for some reason he refused to give it to one of the kids. So his wife came in. Now there's a dozen blokes there, okay, standing around the bar having a drink. We might have had half a gallon at this point. We're nice and jovial. His wife gave them a monster bollocking from the door. Every single bloke in there just literally was delighted. It was gleeful as hell because it wasn't them that was getting the bollocking. And we're all looking at John thinking, now, is he a man or a mouse? Of course. God knows what I would have done. I'd have crept out because she ordered him out, the pub.
Yeah, John, of course you would have done.
I'd have gone with her because I'm a wimp. But John, he turned round, faced us all. I don't know where he got this from. Opened his arms out wide like a music hall singer and sang, "There may be trouble ahead, but when there's music and laughter and love and romance." And he sang the whole bloody song. Turned round, ordered a pint, and forgot all about her.
I think in order to put that into context, we need to first go back a bit and describe the role of a builder's labourer. And now, not just on a building site, but perhaps in life as well, and a pecking order.
Depends on the man. There's many a better man than me who's been a builder's labourer.
Okay, well, hold on. So in order to put a bit of perspective onto this, Chris, I think we should first of all talk about types of labourers, builders, labourers. Now, many people will have had builders in their homes and labourers there, and they range from young, keen students, as I was when I first worked for you, to foreign chaps coming over who don't have the skills but have a work ethic, to middle-aged men, even older, who have never picked up a trade and are just push a broom and shovel a shovel all day, and that's their lot in life.
It is. And they're quite happy with it. But labourers are a vital part of the building process.
Sure.
Because, besides provide, for instance, if you're a brickie, you cannot survive without a labourer. You turn around, you want the bricks there, the muck there. You even want someone to light your fag. You want your cup of tea when you shout for it, and the labourer gets it for you. That's his job. He knows that.
Yes.
If no one minds. It's all part of the hierarchy.
No, and if you think that might sound a bit mean, we're so mollycoddled nowadays, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But if a customer thinks, oh, wow, look at that nasty builder shouting at that labourer. Well, if the customer would like to pay for the builder on the brickie on his 200 a day to go and fetch all those bricks and stack them up and knock up his mix and then come back and lay the bricks and then clean up, you're paying 200 a day money for the menial tasks as opposed to 80 a day money for someone else doing it. So when you get your day, you get your builder and your labourer, and they will charge 280 and you'll get the job done, as opposed to having one guy doing it in 2 days charging you 400.
Yeah.
As you mentioned at the very beginning, I did start as your labourer. And isn't it funny how that just dawned on me as well as I was writing a couple of notes for this?
Do you remember the first job?
It was for that woman who had jaundice, wasn't it?
Yes. She did have... Well, I assume she had jaundice.
No, she had a very yellow pallor to her skin. I remember working there, and I remember you turning up, giving me a brush and saying, right, off you go, paint those windowsills, paint this, paint that. Bear in mind, I'd done very, very, very little painting before, and even then I was amazed that the customers were happy having this incompetent young idiot in their house and for you just to bugger off.
Yes, well, they don't know, do they? They don't know it's your first day.
No.
Bear in mind, you were 19. If you'd been 14, that might have been a bit different. So, you look like a man. You didn't think like a man, act like a man, or behave in any other way like a man, but you look like a man. That was good enough.
You paid me the princely sum of £20 a day.
Yes, it probably was.
Which I remember.
Yeah.
And I just did a bit of maths. So with our homework today, we do our homework before school rather than after school. Our homework was write a few notes down about labourers. And I was working out how much beer you could buy in 1984 with your daily salary.
When I was young, I used to work everything out in pints. These are in the days, of course, when I only had a particular appendage to keep and nothing else. No wives, no kids. Yes. I think I might have had a car, but, So everything was just beer money for me then. But, that's how it should be when you're young.
Do you know, it's funny, though, that money that you pay to a labourer, customers might think you pay them, not annually, sorry. You pay them monthly or you pay them weekly. No, labourers, they want to get paid every day, because what they do is they take that money and they head down the pub and spend every single penny of it, and then come in the next day and they have not 1 pence in their pocket, and they need a sub for the next evening's drinking. So they're always behind, aren't they?
I can highlight that big.
It's not the F again, is it?
It's the F again, yeah.
Go on.
Because he was such a complete head case when it came to alcohol. His wife was constantly chucking him out. And she chucked him out. Well, I don't think she actually let him in this Friday night. And I picked him up on Saturday morning, as per usual. And he announced that she hadn't let him in. I think he slept. That's right. He'd slept in the back of my van because he didn't have a car. I got into the van in the morning. The back door was ajar. I thought, oh no, somebody's been in and nicked everything. And there he is, asleep amongst all the cement bags and sand and stuff. Anyway, so I've forgotten about that. Anyway, he came to work with me and he said he was fed up of it. That as though she's to blame. He wanted to get a flat and live the life of an absolute monster, without anyone bellowing in his ear all the time. But he didn't have any money, and he worked out, this was in 85, 86, something like that, long time ago. He needed 450 quid, all right? When 450 quid was 450 quid. This was for a month's rent and a month's bond, okay? So I said, okay, we'll have a go at it. At 12 o'clock on that Saturday, after we'd finished the morning's work, because you only finish at 12 on a Saturday, I gave him 450 quid, said good luck, mate, and he's off into Surbiton to go to this flat hiring place that he knew, all right? So, on Monday morning, I picked him up, as usual, and I said, how did it go, mate? And he just looked at me, turned his head to one side, and pointed to his chin, which meant this is John and Chris speak, or I've f***ed up again, and just knocked me out, because I've just hit me. What happened? He said, I went back home on Saturday night. So he's gone back home 12 hours after I'd given him the money, and he spent every single penny, and that was a hell of a lot of money, and he had no idea how he'd done it. And so on Monday morning, he's got his hand out for a sub. I took it out of his wages on the Friday night. Every penny of it. Every single penny.
Do you know, it is funny how people spend money in a pub, and you will often find that those with the least amount of money are the most generous. And I wonder if there's some kind of inverse law going on here, whereby the amount of generosity you demonstrate in a pub is inversely proportional to the status you have at your workplace. Because the pub is the great leveller. And if you are bottom of the pile at your workplace, either in your office or on the building site, you go to the pub, everyone's the same there. It doesn't come down to who's got more money. It comes down to who's the lad, who can drink the most, who's the best with the girls, blah, blah, blah. It's all bravado. So I think that a lot of these guys who have no sense of self-worth at work go down to the pub and display this largesse, which makes them feel so much better. And the F was certainly very, very guilty of that, wasn't he?
He lived for the pub, yes. And when he was in the pub, no one did it better than John. Nobody.
You said you were talking in pints, but labourers and most builders talk in a daily wage. If you, with your nice job in an office, discuss salaries, which I bet you never do, with your friends, you'll say, I'm on, X amount per year. I'm on 40k per annum. I'm on 60k. I'm on 120k. Builders do it daily. I'm on X amount per day. And you can see this or X amount per week. You can see this with footballers. Why is it that the only industry is sport, that it's a working man's thing, where you get told how much a bloke earns per week? Industry, the chairman of Carillion that's just gone down would have earned X amount per annum. They wouldn't have said what he's on a week, would they?
The average British working man can't extrapolate, a week into a yearly salary. He doesn't want to. He could, he just doesn't want to.
I always remember talking to the F once about someone who was earning something, and I said this, X amount per year. He goes, what's that a day?
Did he now?
But I think this is quite interesting, because if we want to get an insight into the labourer, we have to realise this short-termism, and it really is, isn't it? It's live for that day. Therefore, you need to know how much money you are getting that day. It's not how much will I have this year so that I can then put a deposit down on a flat. It's how much money will I have today so that I can go to the pub tonight and have X amount of pints. And listener, Joe as well. This may seem as though it's a broad generalisation, but for the most part, it is a fact. Recently, I was employing a guy, I can't say his name. He was the same age as me. Well, he was a bit younger, his late 40s, and he was our labourer. And I turned up to the job, Chris. There was this big, horrible van at 7:30 a.m. billowing diesel smoke. And I went round and saw the front window was broken. He was asleep under a load of dust sheets he was asleep under a load of dust sheets in the front, and this was outside the customer's house. He'd been chucked out by his wife, and he was hammered, and he drove to the job and fell asleep with the engine on, slept there all night.
God, and you've got to take this bloke into the house?
Yep, I know, and we sacked him very shortly afterwards. But again, he never had a penny. He would ring up and he would say, listen, I all the excuses for why people don't turn up to work, I haven't got any diesel to get here. He didn't have a tenner to get to work. Now, I know we've all been skint, but work is your priority. And if you realise that you spent it all in a pub the night before, but that means you won't have a tenner to get to work the next day, which means you won't earn your 70 or 80 quid, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but people... if you're alcoholic and a labourer, you can't see past the bottom of your glass, can you?
No. Now, Chris, I think it's about time we moved on to some questions.
Yes, about time too, mate. Yeah.
Welcome back to The Building Sheriff, www.buildingsheriff.com. I do realise that I don't say this enough. We do enjoy doing these podcasts, but we equally would love you to go and see our site, which we think is really useful for every homeowner in the land, indeed across the world. It's price guides to all jobs around your house. So first of all, we are going to email, and I've got Brian in Worksop. Brian asks via email, we've just bought a condensing dryer and have a 4-inch diameter hole in the wall where the hose was from the previous one. What would be the best way of making good?
If you've got a dryer, you've got loads of old clothes, take some of those old clothes, ram them in the hole, put the dryer against it and carry on, mate.
Heath Robinson Builders.
That's what I'd do. Because if there'll be a round hole on the outside, now that you can't just block that up. If you've got to do something with that, I'll just put a vent over it, pretend it's still the dryer vent.
I think that's really good advice. If it's rendered and it's smooth and there is a round hole, as Chris said, just put a little vent over that. If it's through brickwork, well, I suppose you could chop the surrounding bricks out and then piece new bricks in. But you probably won't do that, but that's what I might do. So, Chris, we are moving on to Twitter. I was looking forward to this because I know what's trending on Twitter.
Well, you would, mate. And as you know, I'm hopping up and down with bloody anticipation here, mate.
Well, some of these are actually quite funny, and I admire the wit. What's trending today is hashtag musical body parts. So someone's having a bit of fun here and has just thought of something. I'll give you one here. Andrew has said it's the spinal countdown. Right,
gotcha. Yes, indeed. Ho, ho, ho. Yeah.
Theme from On Her Majesty's Secret Cervix. Holding back the ears by Simply Head, which is 2 in 1.
Oh dear, yes.
And I Will Always Love You.
I'm trying to think of one with arse.
It's not bad.
With arse, but the green arse of home, no.
And again, I've been looking forward to reading this out, Chris, because I'm keen to hear how you react. Mick154567 via Twitter says, you two sound like a right pair of idiots. By the sounds of you, I doubt either of you have ever done a day's building work in your life. Beep, 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 off and give us some peace. We've been trolled, Chris.
Is that what it's called? When a man with the brains of a rocking horse decides to open his mouth, is that called trolling?
It is. So we've had this before because we used to do some articles on the Building Sheriff and I did some videos and all I got was hate mail I was showing people how to plaster and I got plasterers saying, that's not how to plaster.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if you know how to plaster, why are you watching a how to plaster a video in order to be a hater?
Do you reckon this bloke's a builder?
I reckon he is, yes.
Well, Mick, you're probably the finest builder on the planet, and Pooch and I both bow down to your superior knowledge 100%. I suspect you're approaching millionaire status now, employing about 60, 70 blokes, are you? Yep. And I'm sure if I was to Google you, I'd find your company very close to the top 100. So I apologise for my existence, mate, and I'll never, ever do it again. I salute the mast.
What I find interesting, by the sounds of you, I think it's the way we speak.
Ah, right. So it's just...
Joe, what do you think?
The way we speak.
It's an inverted snobbery.
It is. He thinks we should talk like that, mate. Well...
Yes, exactly. So, anyway... On to Facebook. Joanna on Facebook, and in brackets she's put Bournemouth, so it could be her surname, or it probably is where she comes from. Although my cousin's partner, his surname is Birmingham.
I went out with a girl called Dolores Grange over Sands once.
Very funny. I know that's your particular word for a type of door, isn't it?
The Grange over Sands door. Yes, all these dozy names they give doors, don't they? The Grosvenor, the Ambassador. Yes. The Grange over Sands.
Yes.
Anyway, carry on.
You'll feel terribly important when you enter your abode. Joanna asks, I'm a single mum and want to buy some flat pack furniture from IKEA. I'm not really sure if I have either the time or the inclination to put this together, in brackets, or skills. Would a man come in and do this for me? I've seen the daily rates on your Building Sheriff website. Should I be looking at general builders?
Well, yes, or carpenters, but or possibly even a builder's labourer, provided you get it before he goes to the pub. you're going to have to pay the rate, Chucky Egg. That's all there is to it. It's going to cost you 120 quid for per day. Hopefully, it won't charge you a day, but
Do you know what I suggest? I just thought of this a second as I was reading the question. How about going down to your local news agents and having a look for a handyman? There are lots of handymen out there, and they advertise. They still put those little bits of card up in the news agent's window, and I think that's what you're after, because it's unlikely you're going to get a bloke around who will be happy just sitting there for a day. I don't know, but it'll cost you a lot of money. You maybe try that.
Yeah, good idea, Pooch.
It's almost a dying art being a handyman, isn't it? The village handyman.
I used to be the village handyman when I had a 4-month period with nothing to do. So to get to know people, I put myself up as a village handyman.
I remember.
And I used to push my tools around in a wheelbarrow. And I was thinking, I charge less per day than I used to pay my labourer in Kingston. Half the amount I used to pay my labourer in Kingston upon Thames when I was down there working. And this is 4 months previous. And I didn't bother me in the slightest. I just pushed my wheelbarrow full of tools around the village. And it was a bit like an old rag and bone man.
Like Stan Ogden with his cart on Coronation Street.
Yeah.
Well, effectively, Chris, you were buying friends, weren't you?
Yes, well, I'll tell you where I can get them, mate.
Well, no, true, but you couldn't go in as the new guy saying, right, that'll be £500 a day, especially in Yorkshire anyway.
Especially as I was their neighbour, and it was only a 3 or 4 month process, A lot of blokes would have sat on their arse for 3 or 4 months, but I don't have that gene, I'm afraid.
Talking about sitting on your arse, we're about to finish. Are you going to go and sit on your arse now, or are you going to be active and do something?
What time is it now? It's about 6:45.
Are you going to have a drink is what I'm asking?
No, I'm not going to have a drink, no, because it's January and I won't drink now till Thursday.
Right.
And I will have a drink when I'm going out.
I'm the same. I didn't drink yesterday. I'm not going to drink today. I find that the nights seem to go on forever. And the same with my wife.
Yeah.
We're sitting there, we go, how can it only be 9 o'clock?
Yeah. No. I'm gonna do another hour's work before I go join my lovely wife. When I said that, I do believe there was a slightest hint that I might have sounded jovial about not having a drink tonight. There is no pleasure whatsoever in my uttering that statement, and even less pleasure in enacting that bloody statement.
I know, it is absolutely crazy, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to carry on. The one good thing is that when I don't have a drink, I sleep much better all the way through the night and wake up refreshed. So I'm happy in the morning. I wake up refreshed, honestly.
Can't remember the last time I was refreshed.
Why don't you break that promise and have a refreshing cold glass of beer?
Nope.
And you might feel a bit better about things.
Nope. If I do have anything to drink, it'll be orange squash, fresh orange topped up with lemonade, mate.
Oh, by the way, very last thing. We were sitting down to watch a bit of Netflix TV last night, and I thought I really fancied a beer. So I went into my fridge, I pulled out a beer, and I drank a beer, even though I wasn't drinking.
Oh, for God's sake, man.
It was one of those alcohol-free beers.
Oh, was it?
It was all right. It was freezing cold. I couldn't taste it, and I necked it, and it was it's like a placebo, Chris. Yeah, it made me feel a bit better. So,
well, if it makes you feel better, do it, mate.
Righto, time to go.
Indeed, it is.
I tell you what, wouldn't it be brilliant if you had some kind of world famous sign off? Can you try and think one up? Go on.
I have.
No, go on.
Yes.
Go on.
Here it comes. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you.
It's shit.
Sooty, always in mischief, Sooty. Always the beachy trouble's always brewing. But really we must be fair. He's the cutest, sweetest, lovable teddy bear.
Okay, Sooty, take it away on the xylophone. Ladies and gentlemen, Sooty.